And I actually had a lot of readers send me messages. They were like, how did you remember everything? Like, because I didn't write all these journal entries as we were going. My memory is my secret weapon. So my biggest fear in life is losing my memory, because I have more stories to write. I have more stories to share. I just lost an earplug. And I just think it would be like tragic if I ever lost my memory, but not just because I have stories to share. Also, I don't want to forget everything that I've gone through and all the lessons I've learned and how much I've grown. And so that would be my biggest fear, is losing my memory. One, because I have more stories to share, but because I don't ever want to forget what I've been through, where I've come from, why I've grown into who I am now, and all the lessons that I've learned. That's my biggest fear, is forgetting all of that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. Aloha to everyone out there. We have Danyelle Cedar with us today. We're going to be talking about her book, which I have a copy of here in my hands. I'm so happy to have this. My wife and I are wrestling it from each other daily to read our next portion, but Danyelle's here with us today. We're going to talk about her book, Dear Thomas, a memoir, and a lot of great things. Aloha. Welcome to the podcast.
Aloha.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you. You know what? Now I'm thinking I should have sent a second copy so you and your wife could have your own.
As soon as she sets it down, I pick it up.
Different colored bookmarks going.
Yeah, we do. We have them. Yeah, we have our stuff blocked off, and we kind of talk about it, but then we don't want to talk about it because one person's behind the other. So
yes.
You're creating some conflict in our home, which I love. So thank you for doing that.
I love it. You know, I just have an idea now. His and hers bookmarks.
There you go.
I'm on to something.
There you go. Let's do that. Maybe like
his
a bikini,
and hers bookmark.
Like a bikini theme, maybe too could be there.
Right. Exactly.
Could tie that into the business. Oh, yeah. If you haven't noticed, with the Aloha, Danyelle is in Hawaii. Can you tell us where you are in Hawaii?
Absolutely. I live in Lahaina. Mm-hmm. I live on the island of Maui. I live in a neighborhood called Shark Pit. And I love visitors are always like, shark what? It's called Shark Pit. There are a lot of reef sharks right out front. They're just, the 3, 4 to 5 foot sharks. Black tips usually see them outside. They're harmless. It's not a shark pit of tiger sharks. But that's where I am at. So I'm right off of Front Street. If anyone's ever visited Lahaina, it's like the main hub where all the shops and restaurants are, right by Lahaina Harbor. So I've lived here almost 11 years and I love it. I'm officially an island girl now. So even if I'm on vacation, I am happiest on an island, whether that's Phuket, Bocas del Toro, Mykonos, Santorini, Ibiza. Like I have to be one on the ocean, but I find myself, I'm still the happiest when I'm on an island, no matter what. So I think I'm officially an island girl.
And you've adopted the island lifestyle with some of what you do for your kind of 9 to 5, I guess, thing.
And what you sell, right? Exactly. I have so much fun. I work in a bikini shop on Front Street, and it's the first job I've ever had where I don't grind my teeth at night. So that says a lot, but I have a lot of fun. Bikini shopping's not easy for every woman. It can be a very uncomfortable experience, and to help someone feel comfortable in their body, it's very rewarding. So I have a lot of fun working there.
Amazing. And okay, so you've written this book. I've had the pleasure of having a conversation with you already, which has been great. Tell us a little bit about the story behind writing Dear Thomas. We're going to jump right in because we got a lot to talk about today. How did all of this come about for you to write this memoir, Dear Thomas? I'm just curious if you can kind of give us a brief introduction to how all this started.
Sure. So my book is about my experience of what it's like to be in love with a drug addict and alcoholic. And in the middle of Thomas's relapse, this was in 2017, I had posted on Facebook, I sort of paraphrased an article that I had read about what it's like to have a loved one as an addict. And I shared that. And I had so many people respond to that post, commenting it, liking it, sharing it. It was really overwhelming in a good way. But I also had no idea that that many people related to what I had posted. I truly thought I was alone in my own world, taking care of the man that I love, fighting through his addiction right there beside him. And so it was relieving to realize that there was a lot of people that I knew who actually did relate to what I was going through. And I remember thinking, if there's someone else out there that thinks they're alone, I need to let them know that they're not alone and that I relate to them. So that was the first initial thought of, I should write a book because my life is insane. And so that was the initial thought. I never told Thomas. I also had no idea at the time how this book was going to end. I didn't know if it was going to end with an overdose, if he was ever going to get sober, if it was going to be my happily ever after. So I just I kept this project to myself. And at one point, he does get arrested, which by the grace of everyone knows, someone that is so deep in their addiction, the only thing that can save their life is going to jail. And so I remember when I found out he was in jail, it was the first night I finally got 8 hours of sleep because I knew he was safe. And his time in jail, of course, we wrote letters back and forth to each other, and I loved it. And so it was somewhere in that time when I realized that's how I wanted to write this book, as an epistolary. So every chapter in this book is a letter, and I'm writing letters to Thomas, telling him what he put me through and what I went through, loving him and saving him and all of that. I don't want to say too much to spoil it for anyone else, but that is how I came up with the format of the letters, and therefore the title, Dear Thomas. So
amazing. And when did the book come out, Danyelle?
This book was released just 3 months ago, April 25th, 2023.
Wow. So this
Yes.
this has still got that minty, fresh, new smell to it. I love it.
Yep.
Tell me, what's the response been so far?
The response has been very overwhelming in a positive way. I get messages every day from people telling me how they relate. They thank me for being so raw and vulnerable. I get people who don't read books. They send me a message and they flat out say, I don't read books, and I read your book in 3 days. I couldn't put it down. And that is the biggest compliment ever, because when you're sitting there and writing and it's your life, it's not like I wrote a fiction book, like, no, this is my life. One of your biggest fears is, one, is it going to suck? Are people going to enjoy it? Are people going to judge me? I worked so hard on this. And the biggest message I wanted was to just let people know, like, hey, I relate to you. So when someone says to me, I relate to everything you went through, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, check off box number 1. And then, of course, when people say how much they love it or how much they couldn't put it down, it's just indescribable. It's amazing. And just all my hard work, it paid off. And again, I worked so hard, and it's not even necessarily about the number of hours that I put into this emotionally. It's therapy. Like, I really had to break down my walls and really look at myself in the mirror sometimes. And I get very vulnerable and I get really raw to the point where it's like, oh, yep, I took it there. So people read it like, oh my God, you actually wrote that? Like, or you actually are sharing that with us? Like, yep, I took it there. Like, full transparency. I'm not holding back, because if I could help one person, this is all worth it.
And how long did it take to write?
I was told I write at a record speed.
Oh, really?
So I took some breaks in between, of course, but if I really think about it, I spent 4 months of my life writing the entire first draft. So 4 months I sat down and wrote this entire thing. Now, the first draft, it's supposed to be rough. It's a rough draft. It's supposed to be rough. And I wrote everything down. my rough draft ended up being 3 times bigger or longer than what the final product was. It was just over 176,000 words. Now, anyone who's listening, if they don't know what that means, a book will, and typically the size of a memoir, they're typically between 60 to 80,000 words. So my book was 176,000 words. And my editor said to me, you have to cut 100,000 words before I even look at it. So,
Wow.
so I spent 4 months writing the whole thing. And then I spent 2 months by myself going through, reading it, cutting words, editing it myself. I remember the first time I went through the whole book and I'm like, okay, let's see how many words I cut. I cut 8,000 words. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I still have another 92,000 words I have to cut. And so I had to go and read through this over and over and over again. And it took a lot of practice because it was like, what do I cut? Like, this is my life. And I recognize that I have enough material to write about 20 different memoirs just about me. So I spent 2 months cutting 100,000 words. And then my editor spent the one final month polishing it, designing it, putting together everything. So this entire book was created in 7 months in a 10-month calendar, I would say. So 7 out of 10 months, this came to life.
Before you met Thomas, if someone had come up to you and said that you're going to become an author one day, what would you have said to them?
I wouldn't have said that they were crazy. So growing up, I wrote song lyrics. And oh my gosh, I probably have like banker boxes full of as a kid, I wrote lyrics all day, every day. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, write stuff down. I wrote so many songs. I should probably just sell all these songs.
Yeah.
And but I remember after I moved to Maui, after I turned 21, I didn't write music anymore. I don't know why. I just don't know if I had any new inspiration. And but I stopped writing songs. And then I remember at some point in my 20s, I did think to myself, I should write a book about my life. I didn't know it was going to be this story. And I did think of several books that I could still write. But when the idea of writing Dear Thomas came to my mind, I knew that this had to be my first book. This had to be the first. So yeah, before all this, if someone said that I was going to be an author, I don't think I would have thought they were crazy. I probably definitely would have been like, yeah, I can see that. I have a lot to share.
What does it feel like when the book finally arrives at your doorstep and you open it for the first time and you put hands on it? Talk about what that feels like.
It is surreal. You're just holding this thing in your hand and you're like, I made this.
Yeah.
And I don't have kids of my own, but I imagine people when they have their first child and they're like, oh my God, I created a human. Like I made it. And so that was like how it is for me in my book. Like, I mean, we grow up, we see books in the libraries as kids and in school, and you don't know how exactly they're made and how there's thousands and millions of copies of them across the world. And, you go to Barnes and Noble, you see all these books. And then for you to make one of those, it's very surreal. And also because this was an idea of mine for so long, and to finally actually be done with it and to check this off my list, I share with my friends what was once a serious idea is now a legit reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. It's surreal. And I wish that everyone would put the time and effort into making this happen for themselves, because every person has a story to share.
Yeah.
And man, it's surreal. It's crazy. It still amazes me every day. I don't think I'll ever get used to it, honestly.
So what kind of tips would have been helpful for you as a new author if you were listening to a podcast and you're about to embark on writing Dear Thomas? What kind of feedback or thoughts would have maybe given you a little bit more help in those early days that maybe we can share from your perspective now?
I don't think I would really take anything back. Like, I know as authors, when you start to write more and more, you really do figure out what is actually needed in the book. Again, because my book was so long,
Yeah.
I had to cut, over 100,000 words. So it would have been nice had I not just had to write those at all in the first place. But that at the same time, that is a part of the process, and it
Yeah.
is a part of the therapy to write it all down. Um, so I think over time, as I write future books, I might even be able to write some books faster because I'll know exactly what needs to be there and what isn't necessary.
Mhm. Love it.
And but I also definitely recommend and encourage anyone who's writing a book, you have to take breaks and you have to schedule time to sit down and write down, but also you can schedule time on your calendar. Okay, I'm going to sit down tomorrow and write for 4 hours, or I'm going to write 2,000 words. But then when it comes to it, if you're not in the mood, if you're not feeling it, don't bother,
Mhm.
because you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, and you're just writing crap. Like, you really have to feel it to make it worth it and make it mean something and make the readers feel something. But breaks are a must. Like, I could write, for 3 weeks or a whole month, and then I would take a good 2 weeks off, like telling myself, it's okay, I'm not going to write a single thing. But then, of course, I'd be at work and I'd think of something and write it down on my phone. I'm like, oh, I can't forget that.
Yeah. Right.
But breaks are necessary, and you have to be in the mood and you have to be emotionally invested in it, because otherwise you're just wasting your time and it's just crap
Mhm.
going down on the pages.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, when you sit down to write Dear Thomas, are you, and this is meant in a good way, are you selfishly writing it for yourself as your thoughts to help you process all of the things that have been happening in your life? Or are you writing it for someone, or is it a combination of the two? How do you
I'd say a
approach this?
combination, for sure. Like, again, writing, it's a very therapeutic process, but I'm also writing it for anyone that can relate, to let them know, like, hey, I'm not alone, or they're not alone. I'm not alone. We've experienced the same things. It's scary how many people can relate. It's almost sickening how many people can relate to it, but that's life. And then, a lot of people ask me too, like, well, did you write this for Thomas? Like, well, that's how it looks. And the whole idea is that I'm writing him letters to let him know what he did to me and what he put me through. But at the end of the day, I don't care if he reads this. I
Mhm.
did not write this entire book for him. Whether he reads it or not, I truly don't know. People ask me all the time, do you think he'll read it? I have no idea. And at the end of the day, I don't care. And if he does, I can imagine it would be his deep, dark secret that he'll keep to himself.
Mm,
And
yeah.
what he chooses to do with that is his decision. But no, definitely a combination. The process of it, I felt like, was for me, but then the actual releasing and publishing of this is for every family member of an addict. This is for them, for me to let them know that I relate to you. You're not alone and you will be okay.
So for those that are listening and they're here because of the title of the episode, and they are living a life with someone dealing with addiction in their home and their relationships, and they are that person's support, and they're writing letters either physically or emotionally for these people every day.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts towards them listening right now? They've gathered here to kind of hear your thoughts. What would you say to
Yeah.
them?
Oh man, if anyone who's listening, if you know what it's like to have a loved one as an addict, whether that's a spouse, a sibling, a child, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine, like, for parents who have children that suffer with addiction. Oh my gosh, it makes me want to cry. Uh, just, I know what you're going through, and you have to put yourself first. You have to take care of you. And your loved one who struggles with addiction and alcoholism, like, that is their life, that is their journey. You can never stop loving them. But my gosh, every loved one of an addict knows there's a line, and we can't figure out how to put the line in the sand between loving someone and enabling them. It's, oh, it's so blurry. It's so hard. And I've been called everything in the book. I've been called an enabler, a codependent. It's not fun. It sucks. It's not fun. But and there's just some people that don't get it. They just don't get it. And honestly, people who don't get it, they consider them lucky that they don't understand this pain of what it's like to have a loved one as an addict.
Yeah.
Truthfully, like, but I might have gone off. I can't even remember what the question was, but yeah, but for me to just tell people, you know, I know what you're going through. Oh my gosh. And, but take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. And especially to, I want to say this to everyone, but especially to younger women, because we are the ones who typically we're the nurturing ones. We take care of everyone. I would love if I can help any young girls, especially teenagers or women in their early 20s. Like, I promise you, if you are trying to save someone who is caught up in their addiction, I promise you that is not your purpose. That is not why you were put on this planet, is to take care of this person. It's not. You were not put on this planet to take care of this person who you did not birth. You know, that's a whole other thing too. Like,
right.
If you did not bring this person to this world, it is not your purpose or your journey to save them. You've got to save yourself. You have got to take care of yourself, because I lost myself trying to save someone. And I want to finish that sentence too, but I don't want to spoil the story for everyone.
Exactly. So, I get, in your early days with Thomas, did you feel like, despite what he was struggling with, you could fix him somehow? I
did. And going through that journey and writing this book, I recognized my own addictions. Clearly, I'm addicted to love. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
But I also recognize that I have been addicted to being needed. I enjoyed the feeling that he needed me. I've always enjoyed that someone needs, because I'm a reliable person. Now I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I don't want anyone to need anything. Don't ask me for anything. Do you need me?
Yeah.
Figure it out on your own, you know. And that's something that I've learned, and I'm working on boundaries with myself this past year. But yes, so I realized I was addicted to being needed. So when he needed me, it felt good. And I felt like that meant he loved me because he needed me. I also was addicted to proving people wrong. People thought I was absolutely insane for never giving up on him. And then when I got that engagement ring, it was like everything had fallen into place. Everything I worked so hard on not giving up on was finally coming together. And my last addiction, I realized, was that I'm addicted to success. What's wrong with that? But when it came time to me having to walk away from a company that I created, it was heartbreaking, you know? So in the beginning, what was the question again? I'm
following the conversation too. I'm just loving this.
I know.
Well, I guess, kind of going along the lines of being needed, does that kind of create a false sense of security for you? Where that
I remember the question. It was, did I feel like I needed to fix him?
Yeah.
Yes, I felt like I could. And I feel like that's every woman's flaw, is we feel like, one, that we need to fix people, but two, that we can fix people. And it's like, why don't we just focus? We don't want to say fix ourselves, but just focus on ourselves in a selfless and loving way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely was determined to fix him and get him sober again and save his life. And in a way, I did succeed at that. It didn't end the way I thought it would.
By the book.
Had hoped it would.
By the book. Yes.
Yeah. So But yeah, I felt Deb was confident that I could fix him. Hence why I stuck it out as long as I did.
I think that's what a lot of families struggle with, though, is that push and pull of trying to be there for them, give them the support they need, be a loving, caring
Mm-hmm.
person in their life, but realizing that you don't have the skills, talents, and abilities that a professional would have that could help them better. And we
Mm-hmm.
only have as much knowledge as we have, and that's as far as we can go. And at some point, our knowledge will run out, and we're not helpful anymore. In that situation,
Absolutely.
they need somebody different to help them go further than we could ever do in our life, right?
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say it's a cliche, but it's the truth is anyone struggling with addiction or alcoholism, if they don't want to get clean,
Right.
if they don't want the help, then that's their decision. They have to want it. And that's the same thing for us and all of our loved ones. Like all of my friends and my family saying, you got to let them go, leave them, take care of you. It's the same thing with me. I have to want to make that decision for myself. I have to make that decision myself. All of my friends and family and coworkers, they can, beat me like a dead horse and be like, this is what you got to do this, leave him, leave him, leave him, take care of you. This is his journey. But at the end of the day, I won't make that decision until I'm ready to make that decision and I want to make that decision for myself.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Anyone struggling with addiction and alcoholism, they have to want it. Anyone who's loving them and unfortunately enabling them, not wanting to enable them, no one wants to enable that, but someone who knows that they need to walk away, they're not going to do it until they actually want to. Doesn't matter how many people tell you to walk away, you will not make that decision just until you do yourself.
When we talked, Danielle, together in a pre kind of chat before the podcast, you unpacked for me the book before I got a copy, which was amazing. Again, I won't tell my wife everything we talked about because I want her to discover it as a reader. So there's things I know that she's going to find out that I can't wait for her to find out in a way, because it's going to make it more clear where we're heading here in the book because of our conversation. But there's more coming. And I'm trying to say this in a way that keeps the door open for the story to live and breathe, but there's more coming beyond Dear Thomas. For you as an author, whatever you can share in cloaked terms, however possible, there's something more coming, right? That is part of the story. How can we talk about this?
I know.
But I want to also give credence to what's coming, because there's something else in the works.
Yeah. So I am working on book number 2, and we can't tell everyone what the title is yet, but we can say that it's the behind the scenes of writing Dear Thomas.
Yeah.
And Dear Thomas, it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy. The second book, it's not heavy, but it will be just as shocking and jaw-dropping. And
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it.
I wish I could finish it like tomorrow. But the thing is I am currently still living the timeline of the second book. As of right now, as we speak, I have no idea how the second book is going to end. Because if I did, I would have finished it yesterday. And so I'm working on the second book. And what I can let people know, the second book, there's going to be a lot more healing.
Okay.
I have always been a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I don't know. I can't spoil anything, but I know I'm going to keep everyone on the edge of their seats. I'm on the edge of my seat. And again, because I'm still living the timeline of the second book, but
I feel like you bring in this book. I feel like you bring us to the edge of a cliff. We're seeing sharks swimming down below, maybe a turtle.
Yes,
sharks swimming around below, and we're like, okay, Danielle, what are we doing here? What's next? and you're doing that on purpose, which you
Yes,
can say that kind of, right, in a roundabout way.
for sure. And
Okay.
when I finished Dear Thomas, I didn't obviously intend to leave like a cliffhanger. Uh, but that's life. It happens.
Mm.
And I had so many people tell me though, they're like, I didn't want it to end. Like, I want the follow up, and like, trust me, if that's what I want for you. I want it for
Mhm.
you more than me, but because it is really exciting. But all I can say is I wouldn't mind living a boring life right
Mm.
about now, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just not what's happening right now.
No.
There's nothing boring about it.
Were you at any point in the beginning of writing the book and through the process of writing, were you nervous about how people are going to respond to this, like family, friends, close people in your life, that they would pull this up and it's like they get this inside behind the scenes look of your life that maybe some people didn't
Yeah.
understand or see or know in the time
Oh,
that this is what you're dealing
100%.
with?
Yeah, truthfully, my entire family, I hid everything from them. They had
Mm.
no idea how bad it had gotten. Um, but at the same time, why would I tell them that?
Yeah.
Like, no one wants to share the darkest parts of your relationship. And, they're proud of me. I haven't spoken to every family member. I think there's some family members, especially towards the beginning of my book, I do bring up some things from my childhood.
Yeah.
Um, so I haven't heard from every family member how they feel about it. But at the end of the day, this is my story and my journey and my perception.
Yeah.
Therefore, my perception is my reality. So if someone in my family doesn't agree with what I wrote, doesn't make what I wrote false. It's just that's my take on it. That it's my experience. Um, but aside from that, though, no, yeah, everyone's been very supportive. And again, I hid everything from my family. My friends knew almost everything, and that was what was fun for me and my friends reading it. Was I knew, and I told them ahead of time. I said, look, there's going to be stuff that you remember. There's going to be stuff that you completely forgot,
Yeah.
and there's going to be some stuff where I kept it from you. So I had very few friends that knew 100% of everything. Um, One friend who knew absolutely everything, though, it was still an experience for her to read this book because I went into such detail. She was like, she knew the surface of everything, but for
Yeah.
me to write the details down, she was like, oh my God. So,
If you were to write, well, the podcast is called Living the Next Chapter. So if
mhm,
you were to write an additional chapter, a letter to Thomas about the book, how would you
mhm.
explain this book to Thomas in that letter?
I would, God, that's a great question. Um, if I had to write one more letter to him about this book, I would say to him, I wrote this for me and my journey to heal. This has nothing to do with, if he can feel any type of way. This has nothing to do with trying to embarrass you or call you out. That is not what this is.
Yeah.
This is my journey, and I have a right to share
Yeah.
my experience and my pain and my reality. And that was something I thought of too. There were so many times where I would go to AA meetings with him to show support for him. And in those meetings, you know, everyone shares what they're going through, what they've gone through, some of their stories,
Yeah.
things that they did to their family when they were at their worst. And when Thomas would speak, it was all eyes and ears on him. And people were, their jaws were dropped hearing him speak and hearing him share the things he would share. But what those people didn't know was I was there the entire time, right there next to him.
Yeah.
And so I never got to share with the room my own experiences, but that's also because like, I'm not the alcoholic. I'm not the addict. That is not my place to share. This book, this is my place to share my experience. So I finally get to share with the room or the world what I went through. And so to say that again, though, if I were to write one more letter to him, it's just to let him know this is my share, my path, and my journey for healing. And this isn't about trying to humiliate someone or embarrass someone or call someone out. This is life. This is real. He is not the only Thomas in the world. He's not the only addict and alcoholic that has put their loved ones through what he's put me through. And not just me, his whole family and anyone that loves him.
Right. Okay. So before I go to my big finale question, because I have something I want to ask you, as far as where the book is available, Danyelle, and as well, where to find you online, most active and all that, where do we send everybody to get the book?
So the book is available on Amazon. So anywhere online where anyone buys their book. So typically Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. I've even seen it online at walmart.com. I don't know anyone that would shop for a book at Walmart, but hey, if you have a gift card to Walmart and you want to buy someone a book, you can buy it there.
Nice.
And then any local bookstore, anyone can go to their local bookstore and request that they carry it, because any local bookstore has an account with Ingram Spark. So anyone can go to their bookstore and be like, hey, would you mind, keeping 10 of these in stock and whatnot? And then in the back of the book, I do have an email address if anyone needs to contact me or just wants to share how they relate. I love to hear anyone's thoughts, positive or negative. I didn't hold back in my book. No one needs to hold back in their emails either. The email is dearthomasthebook@gmail.com. And then I can also be found on Instagram at Danyelle Cedar. Danyelle is DanyelleCedar, Danyelle Cedar. So, and I also have an Instagram page for the book. It is the handle is at Dear Thomas the book. So anyone can find me there.
Yeah, and there's a nice QR code in the back of the book as well. You can just scan it and go right to your Instagram account, which is nice. And again, we mentioned before we hit record, what I love is the slight faint author name on each page on the left-hand side. As you get a copy of the book, it's just, when I saw it, I'm like, that is unique. And I love it. It just stands out as something special, that your own little stamp on the book. And I love that. So that's really, really cool. And
Thank you.
I love how it's just letters. Each chapter stands alone, but you can follow the journey. Everything's dated, so you kind of get some context about, what came first and second and third. You can kind of follow along. There's some big gaps there too, and you're like, I wonder what happened between this date and this date, which makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of part of when I had to cut all those 100,000 of words.
Right.
Really, if there's a gap, obviously nothing heavy happened, but there was other stuff going on in my life. Like, there was a time when Thomas was in jail and we were having a Category 5 hurricane in the Hawaii Islands. And, so everyone's boarding up their houses and, prepping for hurricane, food, water. Well, we didn't get a hurricane. We got a wildfire in the middle of the night from the high winds, and the rain never came. So in the middle of the night, I was being evacuated, which was terrifying. One, being evacuated from a fire is terrifying. 2:00 in the morning, you have no idea what's going on. You're so disoriented. So it's terrifying. And then Lahaina didn't have power for 3 whole days. So while he's sitting in jail, I'm being evacuated. He can't get a hold of me. He has no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
So there's things like that were happening at the same time. But that's stuff that I had to cut out, because in this story, I really just had to stick to the topic of addiction and loving someone that struggles with addiction and alcoholism. But yeah, if you notice some big gaps between certain dates, then something big didn't something not big enough happened during that time, which was probably a time, hopefully, I was catching up on sleep
Yeah.
in my
Amazing.
life.
So that big question for the end here, as we close off again, here's the book. Everyone can see. We talked about this before we record, and I'm struggling with the answer to this question myself. But the biggest fear in life for you, you've been come to some realizations personally. What is
Hmm.
that biggest fear that you've identified in your life? I'd love to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off and let everyone know I have a tattoo on the back of my neck of an elephant. My godmother as a kid would always call me an elephant because I have the memory of an elephant. It's a blessing and a curse. My
Mm.
mom is always impressed with my memory, and whereas my brothers are terrified of it. My brothers will be the first ones to tell you that my memory is my secret weapon of mass destruction. And I
Mm.
actually had a lot of readers send me messages. They were like, how did you remember everything? Like, because I didn't write all these journal entries as we were going. My memory is my secret weapon. Um, so my biggest fear in life is losing my memory
Mm.
because I have more stories to write. I have more stories to share. Oh, I just lost an earplug. And I just think it would be like tragic if I ever lost my memory, but not just because I have stories to share. Also, I don't want to forget everything that I've gone through and all the lessons I've learned and how much I've grown. I mean, could you, I know you've been reading my book and,
Yeah.
and for those who haven't, but so I'll just say, like, could you imagine if I don't know, hit my head and I
Yeah.
lost my memory of the last 5 years and I'm thinking it's 2017.
Yeah.
And you have to tell me like, and I'm like, where's Thomas? Where
Yeah.
is he? And you
Yeah.
have to be like, well, Danyelle, actually, why don't you read the book you
Yeah.
wrote?
You're gonna
And
have to read this
I
book.
wouldn't,
Yeah.
I would not believe
What's
all of
in?
this. I
Yeah.
mean, this is insane what happened. And so that would be my biggest fear is losing my memory. One, because I have more stories to share, but because I don't ever want to forget what I've been through, where I've come from, why I've grown into who I
Yeah.
am now,
Great.
and all the lessons that I've learned. That's my biggest fear is forgetting all of that.
Mm.
So,
That's powerful. That is so powerful. And by writing out a memoir like you've done, now you have a moment in time. Life carries on. We live our next chapter. Again, the name of the show. We
mhm,
live the next chapter all the time, right? But you have this now as a moment in time now, something that you can put your hands on. You can share a story that helps people. You can put
mhm,
this out in the world, and again, you never know who's going to read this, who's going to hear
mhm,
this, right? And how this can change someone's perspective and maybe give them the tools to deal with things in a new way, in a new light, which will
mhm,
be better for them as a caregiver, as someone who has someone in their life that is struggling the way you've had. And it, I think I would be challenged to write something like this because I would be second guessing myself the entire time. Um, I'd be worried that people wouldn't accept it. I'd really struggle to do this. And the fact that you did this and you had more words than you could possibly contain in one book tells me that there's a lot more to say. And
I know.
um and I'm
My
looking
editor and I said
forward.
we're like, do we just publish 3 long books? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't want to
No.
do that. Basically, and for those of you, like I said, I gave everyone an idea of like, a book is typically 68,000 words. A book that's 176,000 words, that's like a fat Harry Potter book. Like,
Yeah.
just think of that thick spine of that fourth book. Like, that's how big my book was.
Wow. But what that tells me though, with the words that had to be removed, there's more to tell. There's more stories
Hmm.
to come. There's more opportunities to shape the message and shape the story of what you're living today. And I'm looking forward to the unnamed book that is to come, because
Yes.
I've got a little sneak peek, and I feel like I'm on the
Yes.
inner circle of that knowledge, which
You
I'm
are. It's
holding
a
close
very
to my
small
chest.
circle.
Holding close to my chest. But I have an offer for you. You have to come back, and you have to talk about what's coming in the future
Oh, absolutely.
and share that as well, because it's going to, I think if you listen to a future episode with you coming in the future and then listen back to this one,
Hmm.
things are going to open up in front of you as a listener and as a reader and go, oh, that was well done. That was good. That was good, Danyelle, that you were able to have a conversation without saying what you wanted to say about something that's coming possibly in the future. And yeah, there's something good coming. So I'm excited to have you back.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I'm like, can we put that on the calendar already? But that means I need to have like a deadline for the second one. But again, I'm currently living the second one.
See,
I don't know.
it's coming.
Life is crazy. Life is crazy, and everyone should write their life story, because I personally don't know anyone that lives a boring life.
There you go. And for those following along on social media, there'll be in the future some pictures of this beautiful book near a landmark where I live. So make sure you check out and follow that as well, and check out the all of Danyelle's social media pages. And I'm looking forward to take some pictures with this book close to where I live.
I'm so looking forward to seeing those. Thank you.
It'd be
Thank
great.
you.
Everyone, so please go check out all the information in the show notes for Danyelle, and let her know. And when you buy the book online, please leave a great review. Let people know what the book is about, and so more people can find this and more people can be helped and encouraged to show up in the right ways for the people who need us the most. Danyelle, thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone who has listened. I can't wait to hear from everyone. Can't wait to hear their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Hey, look, we're having such a great time talking to authors around the world. If you are an author and you would like to be on this very show, I would love to talk to you. livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com is the best way to get in touch with us. There you'll find our social media and blah, 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 la-di-da, and such. You, author, soon-to-be author, new author, currently writing your book author, published author, we need you here. The seat's empty, microphone set up, we're waiting for you. livingthenextchapter.com. We would love to have you on the podcast. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah, you should be here. We'll see you at livingthenextchapter.com.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.